We're live? This is it. All right, welcome. Hey, those of you tuning in, I apologize for the delay. I think it's 2:11, so my apologies. This is all new for us, though. This is, I think, the very first time we're doing a Facebook town hall here in the Senate. But welcome. You're making history. And the goal today, it looks a little official here, but the goal today is sort of like what we've been doing over my selfie-based Facebook Live chats, but just to try to open up government a little bit more than it is here in Sacramento. Those of you who can't afford the Southwest flight or don't want to road trip 8 hours to get up to the Capitol every week, this is our humble effort at least being accessible. I did want to say, though, there were some comments we saw online about timing, and I know it's midday, midweek, and a lot of you have jobs, so this is absolutely no replacement for the real thing. We just did a town hall in Canoga Park on the budget, I think last weekend, maybe the weekend before. It's all kind of blurring together. Things are moving kind of quickly. But anyone who's out in Simi Valley or Thousand Oaks or Santa Clarita, as soon as we get through this budget cycle and on to recess, I'm going to be spending a lot more time in the district. So I apologize in advance for not being there more, but I'm up here working as hard as I possibly can for you. And hopefully this will be some good substitute. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping to start. So thanks for all the questions submitted in advance. Not really intended as a screening tool, and we're going to sort of play around here and see what comes up live and just be iterative and just keep it a little bit informal, but really appreciate people taking the time to think about issues. I mean, we've got everything from healthcare spending, renewable energy, diapers, 4 a.m. alcohol, Native American studies, dealing with local small business issues in the Valley. So there's a wonderful range, and I don't want to pontificate too much because I actually want to get to your questions, but I did want to just let you know that you can keep submitting questions as we go on, or comments, or saying what a dummy I am, or you think I'm fabulous, or whatever. This is democracy. You get to do whatever you want. So please feel free to keep participating. And I'm seeing right here, we've got some folks tuning in. I'm checking my Facebook feed right now. So really appreciate you guys saying hello. Hi, Terry. Hi, Stacy. And John, appreciate you joining. Let me just think. What else? We've got, there's a submission form on the website, though. You can put on the Facebook comment section. We'll be looking at the feed. And then if we don't get to all your questions now, we will certainly get back to you in writing from the office. And we're going to be having many more of these to come if it proves successful and you guys all like it. So let me just give you a quick snapshot of what's going on, and then we can get into some questions. So budget's coming up. The California Constitution says we have to pass a balanced budget by June 15th at midnight. That's tomorrow night at midnight, or I don't get paid. So I will tell you the legislature is very motivated to put food on our table. So folks here are getting closer and closer to a final consensus. And I think you just saw yesterday, those of you who are super focused on all these issues, there was an announcement from the governor and the leader of both houses that a deal has been reached. But that doesn't yet mean that everyone's going to vote for it. And I really want to hear your feedback based on sort of what we go through today, how you think we should proceed. But I think my overall message to you today is the California economy is incredibly strong. And some of you asked sort of how this year compares to last year. The economy continues to boom. We are the number one jobs engine in the country. There's a New York Times story, I think last week, about how actually our economic growth is lifting other states' economic growth too, because a lot of the production that we do here, whether it's in manufacturing or the entertainment industry or technology, ends up having follow-on effects for other states. So we have this good jobs overflow effect happening. And so what you've seen is, because the markets are doing well and because California's economy is really on a solid footing, we got more revenue into the state coffers than we expected. That means you guys are making more money, and therefore there's more tax money coming in. So what we were able to do with that, a couple big ticket items. One is pay down the debt. And I really respect what the governor has done in a time of what you could call plenty to continue investing in things like the rainy day fund so that in times of less, we're going to be able to survive those moments. We now, I think, have the rainy day fund. I think the last estimate was we're up to $12 billion now total for when we have a downturn. And typically, these economic cycles, you're good for about 5 to 8 years, and then you typically cycle back down. We've been on a extended period of growth for a while now, so we really are. We're projecting downturns in the out years here, and so that makes it very hard. We can't spend everything, and we can't fill unlimited need out there. The needs far outstrip the supply of dollars, and so this is always going to be an unsatisfying process because whether it's homelessness, kids getting incurring too much debt in college, not enough money going in the classrooms, senior care, our healthcare system, we're never going to fully be able to meet the needs. But I think we've made some tremendous strides this year that have me feeling pretty good about where things stand. So we are making the most significant increase to education spending in this current budget. We've been at a dismal per student funding basis, but I think now we're up to about $11,000 per pupil. But to put that in context, that is the most ever in California history. And we've been, it says plus 4,500 here, but we've been around, I think, about $8,000 or $9,000 per student. So you're seeing a significant uptick across the board. This will hit different students differently depending on where you live. But overall, we're going to see more dollars going into the classroom and better school facilities, teacher take-home pay, and making sure kids have smaller class sizes as a result. So I think that's really positive. And one part of the education budget, actually two pieces that I particularly wanted to highlight were we made a big priority in this office was after-school programs and career technical education, and both of which are winners in this budget. So those of you who you're busy at work and you don't have time to watch your kids every hour of the day after school, there are going to be state resources there to backstop a lot of what the nonprofits are doing. And then those of you who have kids in school, or those of your kids in school yourself who maybe aren't interested in becoming a lawyer or going to medical school or even doing a traditional 4-year degree, there's going to be a big investment in career technical training to make sure that you have access to the kind of apprenticeships in anything from being an electrician or an auto mechanic, culinary arts. There's some incredible programs in the district that we were worried were going to run out of funding. And the good news is the funding has not run out. In fact, it's been replenished. So just as an example, Canoga Park High School, Birmingham, Calabasas, Chatsworth, TO, all have career California Partnership Academies. There's photography and film work going on at the BAIT program at Canoga Park. I know there's some incredible work going on in the arts community, apprenticeships in the entertainment industry. So good news there. And education, to me, is the lifeblood of future economic growth in this state. So I'm thrilled about that. Some things not so thrilled about. We did not succeed in getting a budget transparency bill through. So part of the goal was not just to do these town halls and try to work through the internet, but actually empower you all with more up-to-speed budget information up front and opening it up so you don't just get a PDF every year when the budget is proposed or the revise comes out in May, but that we're actually making it in a machine-readable format. In other words, that all the techies out there and all the nonprofits and anyone interested in kicking the tires on our budget can take that data very easily, put it into their own pie chart, and you guys can start playing with the numbers and seeing, where do we pull from? If we want less funding, going into prisons and more into schools, where do we pull that from? Or if you want more funding in the parks budget, how do you sort of rearrange that? Because it is a tough game and it is somewhat zero-sum. Let me just go through a couple more quick big ticket items and then we will get into some of the comments. you'd like to see us out as a guest to your community members. Very good. I promise you I will be out there as soon as I get done with this. Affordable housing, really glad to see some of that coming through. Thank you, Terry, for your comments there. Yeah. Oh, gas tax. We can talk about that one too, although it's not in the budget, but I'm happy to talk about that one. Not very popular out there with drivers, but I think there's a darn good reason for it, so we can talk about that in a minute. Let me just run through a quick summary of the other items besides the investment in reducing our debt and education. There's also a higher education component that's very important. Cal Grants for kids in need who are going to private universities. So this is scholarship money for lower income students in California to be able to get into great private universities and get their education. That's been, there were proposed cuts there, so we avoided those. There's some ongoing spending in CSUs and community colleges. The UC, Go Bears. I'm a Berkeley alum, and I was teaching at UCLA before I got this job. UC still, in my view, needs more partnership from the state, and I think we need to do a better job of stepping up. So unfortunately, UC didn't fare as well as the community colleges and CSUs in this budget cycle, but I'm going to be advocating, and any of you who are alums out there should be weighing in to say UC is a growth engine in this state and a tool of social mobility. So that's an important piece of the puzzle, and we're going to have to live to fight another day there. So right now we are in balance up through the years 2020, but we are projecting an out-year deficit in 4 years. Relatively modest, and I think we can find a way to deal with it. But that's sort of the outlook, is in good shape for 3, but then we're going to have to start thinking about either where to cut or where increases need to happen in some of the out years. There's some money for the community dealing with developmental disabilities that I think is incredibly important. I was part of a group effort with the Mental Health Caucus, so we now have $27 million for rate increases for intermediate care facilities there, and a lot of folks have been trying to keep up with the minimum wage in the nonprofit sector. In the world of the regional centers and some of the folks dealing with folks anywhere from on the autism spectrum to kids dealing with cerebral palsy who are trying to enter the sort of adult world and transition out of their other station, there's going to be money to deal with some of the staffing challenges we've had there with increases in the minimum wage. So I think it's a really good thing, and it's going to help improve care overall. Not enough, but making progress. And the other big ticket item I wanted to highlight was on Planned Parenthood front. There's a lot of concern out of Congress that the healthcare reform efforts going on now in the Senate, the AHCA, Trump Care, whatever you want to call it. I guess the president changed his mind about whether he likes it or not. We'll see. Day to day, you never quite know. But the bill moving out of at least the House, and we're concerned out of the Senate, would severely limit women's access to reproductive care and women's health in general, let alone seniors and anyone with pre-existing condition. There's a whole parade of horribles, in my view, that are coming out of that repeal and replace effort on the Hill. So we're doing what we can here to prepare for that and to at least have some reserve funding to backstop some of the cuts we're anticipating. So there's $50 million in this budget to make sure that women have access to the reproductive care they've come to expect in California. Probably won't be enough, frankly, if the Congress decides to really hurt California. And I pray they don't do this, because it's going to hurt Republicans and Democrats alike. This is not a partisan issue, but we'll see. Politics sometimes trumps common sense. So we're just going to have to sort of wait and see and get our own healthcare system ready for that federal hit if it does come. Because frankly, it would be if they denied our reimbursements of Medi-Cal, which is the sort of backbone of our healthcare system for those in need, that's $15 billion out of the system. Where do we go find that? I don't think we have any good answers for it, and I hope we don't have to answer that question, but it is pending. Okay, so enough of my long-winded summary. Let's talk some questions. I'm going to scan online real quick, and then let's see what else we got going here. Great. Bonnie's out lobbying federal AUW issues. Welcome, Alexander. Thanks for tuning in, and thank you, Janet. And Jacob. Okay, so Jacob brings up a good point on renewable energy. A bunch of you have been talking about the sort of climate change, renewable energy context. A lot of concerns about the cuts going on federally around renewable energy investment, climate change denialism. Those of you watching saw the intent of the federal administration to pull out of the Paris Accords. And I will tell you, we are not blinking. There is not 1 ounce of hesitation here in California. We're going to continue charging ahead on the renewable energy front. And the good news is that the business community is with us. Because if you are a big company, if you're an automaker, or even an oil company, you hate uncertainty more than anything. And so we have the entire business community, other than I would say the coal industry is always going to drag their heels, but even the big oil companies out there said, regardless of what the Congress and the feds do on Paris and renewable energy, we're going to keep going forward with our business plan, which includes embedding a price on carbon for their pollution. The automakers are going to continue pushing forward on electric vehicle manufacturing and more efficient hybrids because consumers like it. It saves us all money. And they already have their factories geared up to address this innovation, so they can't suddenly walk it back. I sort of analogize to, we're all talking about getting on a healthier diet as a country and eating better, if you want to use that analogy. Donald's going to offer us all a bacon cheeseburger, and the question is whether American industry is going to sort of acquiesce and take the bait or not. And so far what we've seen is American industry is actually resisting this sort of volatility, and they want to just keep plowing ahead slow and steady towards a low-carbon future. So we've been thrilled with the response from the business community, and I think California has both the policy leadership and the dollars to help backstop any of this uncertainty. And so we had a group of Chinese clean energy investors here trying to figure out how to push more money into the California economy. We have investors coming from central, the Midwest of this country, Colorado, Wyoming, even out in Iowa, coming out here to say, how do we get involved in the renewable energy economy? We're such a big market here. We're attracting innovators from all over the world. Fiji, who's now the head of the UN talks, they were here yesterday with the governors of Oregon and Washington, as well as Governor Brown, all committed to pursuing a carbon-free, fossil-free, and renewable energy-powered future. So the signs of progress are good. I know it might feel a little bit grim, but we're pushing ahead. And just as a little bit of evidence on that, this budget is not only investing heavily in innovation and clean energy innovation at that, but we also have bills moving to push for 100% renewable energy. And there's also going to be a conversation about the future of our climate pollution programs and trying to find a bipartisan consensus about the need to address climate change as cost effectively as possible. So stay tuned, but I'm actually quite optimistic, even though it's a little scary out there. I think lots of good signs on the horizon. Thank you, Celeste, for your hello, and hi, Emily and Ryan. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Okay, so let's switch modes a little bit here. Concern about 4 a.m. alcohol sales. This is a bill. This isn't the budget. I actually did not vote for that bill. This would grant local governments the authority to have alcohol establishments open till 4 a.m. I may look young, but I'm a little bit of an old schooler in this regard, and I wasn't quite comfortable with it. The bill is, however, moving, so you all can weigh in the assembly and see what happens there. But I'm concerned about some of the issues around having more alcohol in the community, as well as on cannabis. I think people also assume, oh, you're the millennial, you're going to be pro-proliferation of cannabis and the whole marijuana industry. And in fact, it's quite the opposite. I think, I was a kid growing up in a community that a lot of kids were smoking pot, and I saw the impact it had in high school on a lot of my friends. And so in this budget, there's a really important piece that's going to beef up regulations on the now legalized cannabis industry to make sure that especially young people are not getting access or being marketed to products that are really going to hurt their growth. I frankly don't care what you do. If you're 35 years old and you want to smoke pot in your house, do what you want. It's a free country. But when 15-year-olds are out there being marketed gummy bears and overdosing on this stuff, and the number of poisonings that came out of Colorado after they legalized cannabis is frightening to me. So I've been engaged very heavily along with a few other sort of task force of legislators to make sure that this budget has language to ensure that the rollout of recreational cannabis is not just a freewheeling market, but that there are incredibly tight regulations, that packaging, labeling, access is tightly controlled, and most importantly, that youth aren't being exposed to this in a way that is going to see some big uptick. And in fact, I think the goal ought to be, if we're going to have recreational cannabis open for adults, we should be seeing a net reduction in consumption, just like we're seeing in cigarettes among young people. So I'm deeply committed to that, and I think this budget goes a long ways to beefing up those regulations. Let's see. There are. Let's see. What can the community do besides making phone calls, appearing in person, and personally stating reasons for senators to vote on a particular way? Oh, so there were some folks from Porter Ranch are weighing in about sort of just general advice on advocacy here. Well, first of all, weighing in on things like that through Facebook and through letters and phone calls to the office, those matter. And actually, every time you call the office, we put that into our system, and when I'm casting a vote, thank you. When I'm casting a vote, I actually say, has anyone weighed in on this? So who is passionate about single-payer health care? Who wants there to be transportation infrastructure investment? So we literally are tallying phone calls. So phone calls still matter. Good old-fashioned agitation still matters. You know, nowadays with social media, you can protest. Hey, you can protest me or the governor or the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. And if you're creative and funny and smart about how you market this, we pay attention. But the other thing I would say is please work with my office. If there are particular bills I'm working on or that are going on up here, we can help organize advocacy days for you in the Capitol, too. If you have the wherewithal, maybe you can take a road trip with your kids. I know we've had a few schools come out. We had Los Encinos and Point Doom Elementary and a few other schools come up with their parents. It's an incredibly empowering exercise. We had them actually the Senate floor, and we went through what bills they would be passing. I love that stuff. I was a civics teacher, so it's sort of my old hat. But we will roll out the red carpet for you if you ever want to come to Sacramento. And I'm not just talking about a tour, but I'm talking about substantive engagement and ways to advocate. So take, for example, SB 57. It's a bill that I'm pushing to keep the Aliso Canyon gas field closed out in Porter Ranch, at least until they figure out what happened there when there was the largest methane leak in U.S. history. We still don't know. Was it caused by earthquakes, corrosion? No real answers yet. And yet the gas company is trying to reopen that field. So we are doing everything we can with people power to make sure that they don't reopen that field until they've figured out what happened. We have not succeeded yet. The bill is a bit stalled on the Senate floor, but a merry band of warriors came up to Sacramento on a road trip and competed with the biggest, baddest lobbyists in town. And they're on their own merit. About 8 folks came up here and helped whip votes. And they really made a difference because you can punch through the traditional sort of lobbying world here. When you show up as real people who are affected by real issues, that matters. And I want to thank those folks who have made countless road trips up here. The community of Porter Ranch is a truly inspiring group of folks who just want to get life back to normal. And I'm going to be fighting for you. So talk to them if you want to hear what it's like to come up and do a little bit of advocacy in the Capitol. I hope it's, even if we haven't succeeded, I hope it's at least gratifying to sweat and advocate and really flex your muscles, and we will get there. Okay, let's see. Good question from Emily Helfand about UC audit and UC and CSU funding issues. Let's see. I talked about it a little bit, but given that a few folks have brought up the UC, I'll give you a quickie on that. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're all right. So there was an audit conducted of the UC system and how The president, Janet Napolitano, was using some of her discretionary funding within the Office of the President to be funding various initiatives on campus. The audit, in my view, may have been politicized or overstated some issues. There were some concerns about how discretionary funds were being spent and how it's being accounted for. There's a list of reforms that UC Office of the President has committed to undertaking that I think are very positive just for the sake of transparency and knowing where money's going. By the way, the money was going to helping young women and victims of sexual assault deal with mental health counseling. It was dealing with sustainability efforts on campus, dealing with dreamers and kids who were concerned about immigration issues on campus. So it's not like the money was being squandered or used on stupid or superfluous things, but I think it's the tracking of the dollars that matters. However, we're talking about $38 million here. And the overall budget for the UC is around, I believe, $20 billion. So $50 million, $20 billion, right? And the future of our kids in the finest public university system in the world is at stake. And I do not want to see us try to make political hay out of some budgetary transparency and reform issues that, to me, are much smaller in scale to what the social mobility engine that the UC is. Unfortunately, UC did not prevail. CSU did fine, and community colleges did quite well. But as I mentioned earlier, the UC system, I think we're going to be dipping more deeply into their affairs, and hopefully we can find some way to continue making those administrative reforms. But we have to be funding especially needs-based scholarships for the middle class and for lower income communities to get access to the UC system. Because as much as I love CSU and go Dolphins and go Matadors and all the other, CSUN, CSUCI, I love them, but we do not want to let the gem that is the University of California be tarnished in any way. So that's a little bit on that front. We are here. Let's see what else we got. Trump and EPA. Am I a socialist? No, I am not a socialist. I am a fiscally conservative, environmentally aggressive Democrat, I would say. But Mike, I know Mike in Simi, by the way, you want me out there, and not trying to skirt a town hall at all. It's just been a matter of timing. I was out there on Memorial Day the other day, but I am totally game to come out to see me, and you can let me have it as soon as I get out there, so you'll be the first to know, Mike. But I promise you I will be out for a town hall, and we can talk about the budget after that, but there's going to be plenty of bills and all kinds of stuff going on, so I'm happy to come out, but I appreciate you agitating. And have I ever said no to a tax increase? Yes, I have, in fact. I've voted against several. But there are some taxes that I do think make sense. And I know a lot of folks have been talking about gas tax. I see a number of comments about that. So when I think about the role of government, it's first and foremost about our health and safety, and then about protecting the economy. And investing in infrastructure, to me, is not just a jobs issue, and it's not just about fixing potholes or reducing your traffic, which I know are huge issues out there, but fundamentally it's a safety question. If you're driving to work every day and the roads are in an unsafe condition, real lives are impacted. I've seen it too many times. I know if you are an Angelino or a Ventura County resident, you know that lives are lost on our roads every single day. And when I see tragedies, I was out on PCH the other day, and someone trying to take a right turn on a PCH, inadequate crosswalk and stoplight signage and lighting along the way. Car comes careening down, smashes into the car taking a right-hand turn. A woman's out to walk her dog onto the crosswalk and across the street to get some fresh air. She's smashed into the barrier. Her dog's killed. The woman in the car suffers severe injuries. And it's a tragedy overall for that community. But I was there for, the ribbon cutting of a Caltrans project to put cutting-edge crosswalk and signage technology in place, a new Hawk system, they call it, and walked those folks across the street, hand in hand, safe. And that's a redemptive feeling because, driving the car seems like the most basic, boring function in our lives. But when the roads are unsafe, and they are unsafe right now, and they do need to be fixed, but when they're unsafe, people get hurt. And what becomes a casual act, and you're playing on the radio and suffering through the commute on the 101 or the 118 or the 405 or wherever you are, becomes a tragedy. And so part of my vote on SB 1, which is going to put some new fees in place to pay for road infrastructure upkeep, is really about making families safer in the state of California. And oh, by the way, we're going to have a massive economic increase, huge jobs engine on top. But to me, safety comes first. So that's a little bit of insight into that vote and why why some taxes actually do make sense. But I do agree to all of you out there who have concerns, and I saw some concern about if we have a little extra money, why not take it to fix roads, worried about squandering that. Back to the socialism front. I don't know. I guess Bernie's the only socialist out there, but maybe not. Certainly not me. But on that front of just trying to be disciplined with your dollars, that's what this forum's about, and that's, I think, what the challenge for the Democratic Party is right now in the state of California, is to say, the Democrats are in charge right now, and those of you Republican or decline to state folks ought to hold us accountable and say, all right, there's 2/3 majority in both houses and you have a Democratic governor. Do you have the discipline to hold yourselves accountable? And I think right now the governor, above all else, above anyone else, is doing the adult work to really discipline this process. That goes to paying down the debt, investing in the rainy day fund, and not spending what we don't have. So I'm proud of that fiscal discipline we've showed, and I want to keep it up for whoever's going to be the governor the next time around. I think they should have the same kind of just sober math about what it takes to run the state of California. Let's see if we got any more with the time we've got left. What are you doing for homelessness, for housing? Okay, so hold on, let me see. I got some homelessness questions. Go Lumberjacks. Hey, Patty. Andrew. Oh, good. Andrew's actually one of the people who came up as those Merry Warriors up to the Capitol. But we do need a public health study, and we can talk about legislation. Rocketdyne Santa Susana Field Lab. Just a hello from Sophia. Hi, Sophia. Okay, so let's take on, just for a sec, so homelessness, housing. There is a housing crisis in the state of California. I know this because I've been trying to figure out how to buy a home, and it's darn near impossible, especially if you live in LA or Ventura County, which are some of the most expensive places to live. And if you want to go be a teacher or a nurse or work as a mechanic or do any of the service jobs out there and lead a middle-class life, unless you have a home in your family, it is very hard to get on the market. But it's hurting the poor the most of all. And you're seeing people fall out of the system into homelessness. We are pushing a very innovative housing bond through the legislature right now, as well as sort of specific targeted housing measures to deal with homelessness in all its various types. So homelessness is not a monolithic problem. It is a matter of mental health issues. There are veterans struggling with their own challenges. Victims of domestic violence are actually some of the most, victims of domestic violence and foster youth are actually some of the most vulnerable to falling into cycles of homelessness. So we're sort of trying to take them in pieces. There is an increase in CalVet for affordable housing for homeless veterans, which is, to me, the basic test of our morality and decency as a legislature is, are we going to take care of those who fought for this country? We're doing our part here in California. We're worried about federal cuts, but we're trying to stem the tide there a little bit. As I mentioned, the $27 million for developmental disabilities, but also wraparound services for those struggling with mental health issues are going to be a big part of the housing bond we're pushing, which the idea is you deal with the whole person. You don't just throw a house or some subsidized rent at someone who's struggling with homelessness, but you try to tackle the root of the issue. Is it a substance abuse issue? Are there mental health issues? Is it simply a matter of job training and access to work? Really tackling that whole person and integrating government services in a way that make them more efficient. So you have social services, talking with housing authorities, talking with mental health authorities and social workers. Bringing that integrated sort of whole person approach, I think, is the key. So both a state function, but also, this is more for the LA County folks in the audience, but the local efforts have been just huge. We have Measure HHH and Measure H, which just passed, which is going to beef up these services. And I want to see the San Fernando Valley and all of LA County, the North LA County, really succeed. So if you're talking to either your county supervisor or your city council person, and those of you in my area would be either Catherine Barger or Sheila Kuehl for the soups, and maybe Paul Koretz or Bob Blumenfield or Mitch Englander, let's fight for a San Fernando Valley that we've solved in a way that is humane, that addresses homelessness at its root, that gets services out to the community. Let's fight for our share of that budget. And I'm with you 100% there, but we're going to have to really push an advocacy effort locally to make sure we get those dollars moving, because any of you who live by the LA River, or south of Ventura Boulevard, or even in the North County, or out in Simi Valley, or in Moore Park, it doesn't matter, even in Malibu, you'd think, oh, that's a rich community, they have no problems. But, we've seen a persistent issue with homelessness in these communities that every single community has their challenges to address. But luckily, there's some funding out there now, some from the state, some locally, but I think collectively we've got to insist that we can be better than this. We are the richest state in the whole country. We are the richest country in the whole world. And the fact that people are hungry, starving, and don't have a roof over their head is morally unconscionable and solvable. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's see if we got any other. Yes, dignity for our homeless Americans, proper medical care and assurance for a better life. Thank you, Virginia. Absolutely. Water, not a ton. Someone brought up water. Not a ton of issues in the budget per se. There is some new funding for flood control out of Proposition 1. There's some protection for coastal areas, but there are also many local water issues that we're going to have to wrestle with, whether it's capturing more stormwater in the San Fernando Valley along the LA River, or trying to make sure there's transparency in how water is delivered in Santa Clarita Valley so that we can get more recycled water into the system and folks feel more bought into what's behind their water rates and that we don't somehow prejudice the system towards overdevelopment. We're going to be dealing with that in so many pockets. Out in Ventura County, my folks do a bit of farming out there, and I know especially for the agriculture community out there, they've had ongoing issues with salt, basically chlorides in their water, and really seeing the cost of water and water purification increase as a result. And we want healthy farms and healthy farm workers in Ventura County. So I'm putting in some time with my office to try to come up with some integrated solutions to keep the cost of water affordable for those growing in the ag areas, real transparency behind the rates, but also pushing some innovation. There's some very exciting innovations being made in the way we grow our food in East Ventura County and in Ventura County as a whole that I think the whole state could stand to learn from. I think, look, there are many other issues out there, and I'm going to be disappointing here because I can't get through every single one, but I promise you we will follow up on any questions submitted here online. If you call the office, we will get back to you. But give me some feedback. Let me know what you thought of the forum, if we should be doing this again, if you want the format changed. I got to get back to a committee hearing right now and start getting ready for the vote. But please weigh in. We love your feedback. I so appreciate everyone who joined today in exercising their muscles in our democracy. I work for you. So it's my job to listen, and I'm going to try to find any possible way I can to to make it as easy on you as possible to do this advocacy. So I'll see you back in the district or online. And if you come up to the Capitol, I promise you we are rolling out the red carpet. So with that, I'm going to I'll sign off and I'll see you soon. All right. Thanks, gang.